Gosh, what a pleasure to be here tonight. I usually have a microphone, so I'm going to make my own. It just feels comfortable. So I don't care if it's got functional. I don't care. But I basically, to get to this story, I kind of have to give you a little bit of background. Okay, so I'm one out of 6 children, and I was raised on the Canadian border in Vermont, on a beautiful farm, 500 acres and 150 cows, which basically meant all 6 kids did all the work. So along with that came, everyone had a different personality. And basically, I had a sister who became a midwife and a nurse, brother who's a dentist, and a whole bunch of very professional jobs. And then you throw in an artist. So my dad was like, Lorraine, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I look up and I go, Papa, I'm going to be an artist. And he just like looked down and goes, you better take some secretarial courses. I looked up and I took charge and I said, no, Papa, no. So it was just one of these things where an artist was not actually something he envisioned in his family. So I was like, I can live with that. I'm going forward. Charge ahead. So that's your word. We're moving it in. So growing up in this farm, up in Vermont, it was like in the winter time, it was always 12 feet of snowdrifts, it was freezing. You think Rochester is bad, Vermont is like 100 times worse. Now, every child had to do a lot of the chores. So one of mine, after doing all the dishes, dinner dishes and everything, I had to go and get the milk out of the barn and bring it all the way up. So, you know what? It's cold, it's dark, and you hear wolves howling in the distance, and the distance is like 200 feet. And they're there. And then you've got to pass this garage, this open garage door, and you hear a wolf growling and baring his teeth. And you've got 8 quarts of hot milk. And you've got to make it through. So of course, I'm 8 years old. The only thing I could do was hold on to those 8 quarts of milk, stare into the darkness, and hunch up my shoulders, growl back, and shake the quarts of milk, just like that. And then I slowly made it to the front door. It was the scariest thing I ever did. And then I was like, yes, I made it. So now, whenever I get like a little nervous, I just hunch over and start thinking. He learned these really important, these very important lessons. So, now, one thing, and these are life lessons you take with you forever. Now, my dad was like, Lorraine, you've got to pull your share. So I'm like, oh God, if I pull anymore, I'm gonna like faint. And then he's like, this is how it is. We all bond together. So I decided, I was 6 years old, and I decided I'm gonna stick up for myself. I'm gonna take charge of my life. So I'm just like, my job was to make the beds of all the boys, the whole family. I had to make all their beds. I had to make breakfast, make all the beds before, 2nd grade class, So I'm just like, one day I had enough. So I go, Papa, I was short. Papa, it's just not fair that I'm making my brother's beds. And he looks down and he goes, you're absolutely right. And I'm like, yes. Victory, I win. And he goes, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake you up at 4 o'clock and you can come to the barn and milk cows. And I said, oh shit. That's not what I was anticipating. I'm like, I don't see this happening. And sure enough, I just looked around, I got ready for school. Next morning, he woke me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I had to go down to the barn and milk cows. And then I was totally covered up. I didn't want the smell of poop on me while I go to school. I guess the farm term is manure. So I was like, I just don't. So I was totally covered up. And everything, you know, totally. I had little rubber boots. Dragged those rubber boots down that driveway. Not a happy girl. I counted all the way from the front door to the barn. I was like, shit, this sucks. So of course, I get back, fix breakfast for everyone, and I'm just like, I don't like this. So my dad goes, so you're gonna make the boys' beds tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah. He was a very smart man. I used a lot of his lessons raising my boys, but they always won. So I did something wrong in there. You know? I'm like, I gotta write notes, I gotta take notes. But, so anyway, I kept on making all their beds until, you know, we moved, which was a beautiful thing. I was like never so happy to leave a certain place in my life. Now, also, we had the first sustainable ecosystem. We had all the vegetables, the fruit, we had meat, steaks, hamburgers, the whole thing. And one of these steps was, and of course we were French, so when we actually prepared like one of the cows, we actually took every vital organ. Now, I was squeamish, very squeamish, and my dad was like, we have to all pitch in, and I'm like, oh. So of course, I'm 5 years old, it's in the winter time. He sticks me in a snowbank with my little red rubber boots and gives me a wooden spoon, and I have to like stir like 5 gallons of blood. And I'm like thinking, this is not how I see my life. I'm 5 years old, I'm thinking, you know what? John F. Kennedy is waiting for me out there somewhere. I don't think John F. Kennedy would be happy seeing me in a snowbank stirring blood. I daydreamed a lot, you know. He was already dead 2 years. I was like, this is not fair. And I was thinking, you know, if my dad leaves me in the snowbank any longer, we're going to have like slushies. This is not good. I knew you couldn't have milk. There was no milk product in there, no ice cream. So anyway, my dad took charge of my snowbank. So anyway, I did come up with a few things, and one thing was, you know, going off to college. It was actually a very welcome reprieve. I'm like, I have the opportunity to go to New York City or to Providence, and I decided, there's subways, there's snow, I'm going to Florida for art school. So I went to Florida, and I have to say, having taken charge of my environment and my weather, Florida has beaches, the Gulf of Mexico, beach parties, the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of really good, it was a great art school, I loved it, and there were no snowbanks. Thank you.